The unwelcome arrival. The translucent dome of the Dracorian Military Academy loomed against the amber sky of Dracor Prime, its crystalline spires reaching toward the planet's twin suns like accusatory fingers. Within those spires, the most elite warrior species of the Galactic Confederation honed their natural aggression into military precision. For 8 centuries, the Academy had accepted only the strongest, most aggressive species from across the known universe, which made the arrival of Cadet Maya Chen all the more perplexing. Maya stood at rigid attention in the grand arrival hall, her regulation gray uniform crisp against her brown skin, black hair trimmed to military precision. At 175 centimeters tall, she was dwarfed by the smallest Dracorian cadet, who stood at least 2 meters tall. Their scaled bodies, evolved on a high-gravity world, with twice Earth's oxygen levels, made them living tanks, massive, powerful, and nearly impervious to damage. This is the human. Commander Vextral's voice rumbled through the hall, more growl than speech. The commander circled Maya like a predator, his amber eyes narrowed to slits. The diplomatic corps must be playing some elaborate joke. Maya kept her eyes forward, maintaining parade rest. She'd prepared for this moment for 3 years, ever since humanity had joined the Confederation and negotiated for a single seat at the Academy. One human to prove they belonged among the stars. "I assure you, Commander, I am quite serious about my attendance," Maya replied, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. The translation implant in her ear caught the ripple of clicking sounds that signified Dracorian laughter, mocking, dismissive. "It speaks," another officer said, thick tail lashing in amusement. "And with such confidence. Tell me, human, what weapons training have you completed? What blood have you spilled in battle?" Maya had scored top marks in the United Earth Defense Force. She'd mastered 4 martial arts disciplines. She graduated first in her class in tactical operations. None of that would impress creatures who began ritual combat training before they could walk, whose adolescent rites involved hunting predators with nothing but ceremonial blades. "I have completed all required pre-academy training as specified by the Confederation Accords, sir," she answered instead. Commander Vextral leaned closer, his hot breath carrying the scent of iron and meat. "The Accords? Yes. That scrap of diplomacy had forced us to accept your kind." His scaled face contorted into what might have been a smile. "The Accords say we must admit you. They don't say you must graduate." The surrounding officers clicked in approval. Maya kept her expression neutral, though her stomach twisted. The Academy's dropout rate was legendary. Nearly 40% of all entrants failed to complete the 5-year program. Those who washed out returned to their worlds in disgrace. Many never recovered from the shame. "Your quarters are in the Eastern Spire, Cadet Chen," Vextral continued. "Your roommate is Cadet Tuveric of the Silvorian Clutch. I'm sure you'll find the arrangements educational." Maya recognized the name immediately. The Silvorians were notorious even among warrior races, insectoid creatures whose hive mentality made them ruthlessly effective in battle and utterly lacking in empathy for non-Silvorians. "Perfect. Thank you, sir," she replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Formation training begins at dawn. That's in 3 hours, local time." Vextral's massive head tilted. "I understand humans require significantly more rest than superior species. Perhaps you should have considered that before coming here." "I'll be ready, sir." The commander turned away, dismissing her without another word. Maya collected her single regulation duffel and followed the glowing pathway to the Eastern Spire, aware of eyes watching her from every corner of the massive hall. Some curious, most hostile, all doubtful. The Eastern Spire turned out to be the farthest from the central facilities, a deliberate insult, placing her at the maximum possible distance from the training grounds. The lift system carried her upward, through levels populated by various species, all physically intimidating in their own ways. Massive reptilian Dracorians, the dominant species, multi-limbed Silvorians, their chitinous bodies gleaming under the soft lighting. Ursine Gromics, their fur elaborately braided with battle trophies. And dozens of other species all evolved for combat in ways humans could only dream of. None spoke to her. Some made what she assumed were insulting gestures. Maya kept her gaze forward and expression blank. Show no weakness. That was the first rule of survival here. Her quarters turned out to be a Spartan chamber divided into two sections. One half was clearly adapted for Selvorian physiology, a concave resting platform covered in some sort of gelatinous substance. The other held a simple platform bed that was at least sized for a human, though the mattress was rock hard. A single storage unit, a desk terminal, and a sanitation chamber completed the space. Teveric was already there, its 6 limbs busy arranging what looked like weapons on its side of the room. The Selvorian's compound eyes swiveled toward Maya, faceted surfaces reflecting her image back in hundreds of tiny duplicates. Human. Teveric's mandibles clicked. The translation implant rendered its voice as female, though Maya knew Selvorians had 5 biological sexes, none of which corresponded neatly to human concepts. You smell of fear. Maya set her duffel down. I'm not afraid of you. Not me specifically. Your glands betray general fear. Interesting. Teveric's head tilted at an unnerving angle. The colony mind believed humans incapable of recognizing their own weakness. Yet you know you don't belong here. I earned my place just like you did, Maya replied, beginning to unpack her few belongings. Teveric's mandibles clicked in what the translator didn't catch, probably some Selvorian expression without a human equivalent. You passed entrance requirements designed for species with natural advantages. Either your testing was falsified, or you compensate through artificial means. The insectoid moved closer, examining Maya with disturbing intensity. Which is it? Maya continued unpacking, placing her personal tablet on the desk. Neither. I worked harder than anyone else in my cohort, that's all. Effort without innate capability produces limited results, Teveric said. The Academy breaks even evolved warrior species. You will not last the first lunar cycle. Before Maya could respond, a harsh tone sounded throughout the chamber. Teveric immediately moved toward the door. Formation assembly. Follow if you can keep pace. Maya had barely finished storing her belongings, but she fell in behind Teveric without complaint. The Selvorian moved with startling speed through the corridors, clearly attempting to lose her in the complex network of passages. Maya had memorized the Academy's layout during her journey here, however, and managed to keep up despite her roommate's best efforts. They emerged onto a vast courtyard where hundreds of cadets stood in formation. The first light of dawn colored the amber sky blood red, casting long shadows across the polished stone. Commander Vextrol stood on an elevated platform, flanked by other Dracorian officers. Maya slipped into the last row, acutely aware that she was the only human in a sea of aliens. The silence as she took her position was deafening. Cadets. Vextrol's voice boomed across the courtyard without need for amplification. You stand in the most prestigious military institution in the Confederation. For 8 centuries, we have produced the finest warriors, strategists, and commanders the galaxy has ever known. Many of you will fail. Some of you will die. All of you will be tested beyond your limits. His amber gaze swept across the assembly, lingering pointedly on Maya. The Academy acknowledges no weakness, accepts no excuses, and offers no second chances. You are here because your species are considered worthy of the honor of serving alongside the Dracorian Imperium. Prove that worth, or return to your worlds in disgrace. A collective roar went up from the assembled cadets, a primal sound that made Maya's skin prickle. She kept her face impassive, even as instinctual fear coursed through her. Today begins your assessment period, Vextrol continued. You will be evaluated on physical conditioning, tactical awareness, weaponry proficiency, and leadership potential. Those who fail any assessment will be immediately removed from the Academy. Without warning, the platform beneath Vextrol began to rise, carrying him high above the courtyard. At the same time, The stone beneath the cadet's feet shuddered and split, reconfiguring into a complex obstacle course. Walls rose, pits opened, and automated weapons platforms emerged from hidden compartments. "Assessment begins now," Vex Troll announced. "Complete the course or be eliminated." Chaos erupted as hundreds of cadets surged forward, many immediately turning the exercise into a competition, shoving aside others to gain advantage. Maya narrowly avoided being trampled by a charging Grommet, rolling aside just in time. She scanned the course quickly, noting that while most cadets were taking the most direct route, straight through a gauntlet of obstacles, there appeared to be alternative paths. Taking a deep breath, Maya sprinted not forward but to the right, away from the main pack. "The human flees," someone bellowed, triggering derisive laughter that cut off as the first automated weapons began firing stun projectiles into the crowd. Maya wasn't fleeing. She was thinking. The direct approach favored raw strength and endurance, attributes where she couldn't compete with species evolved on high-gravity worlds with dense atmospheres. But the course had clearly been designed with multiple viable paths. She spotted a narrow ledge running along the perimeter wall, overlooked by most cadets in their rush forward. With a running start, Maya leaped, catching the edge of the ledge with her fingertips and pulling herself up. The narrow path bypassed the worst of the obstacles, though it presented challenges of its own, primarily balance and precision, areas where humans excelled compared to the heavier, less agile species. From her elevated position, Maya could see the entire course. Most cadets were bottlenecked at a series of barriers designed to be smashed through by brute force. Others had fallen to the stun weapons and were being dragged off the field by automated medical units. Very few seemed to be analyzing the course as a tactical problem rather than a test of raw power. That was her advantage. Humans might not be the strongest or fastest species, but their evolutionary history as pursuit predators and problem solvers had given them exceptional pattern recognition and tactical thinking. She moved along the ledge with careful precision, occasionally having to leap gaps or duck under obstacles. The path eventually rejoined the main course near its end, depositing her just before the final challenge, a climbing wall that stretched nearly 30 meters high, its handholds spaced for creatures with significantly longer limbs than humans. Here, she couldn't avoid direct competition. Already, several cadets were scaling the wall, their natural advantages obvious. 4 armed Pellerin cadets practically flew up the surface. Tricorians used their claws to create their own handholds in the material. Maya approached the wall, aware that several instructors were now watching her specifically. She'd drawn attention by taking an unconventional route, and now they waited to see her fail at this final, unavoidable test of physical prowess. She studied the wall for a moment, then began to climb. Each movement was precisely calculated, using momentum and leverage rather than raw strength. Where other cadets powered straight up, Maya moved in a zigzag pattern, finding the most efficient path, resting one limb while using the others. The effort was grueling. Her muscles burned, her fingers cramped, and halfway up, she missed a handhold and nearly fell. But she kept going, aware that to fall now would confirm every prejudice about human weakness. As she neared the top, Maya noticed something none of the other cadets had: a narrow shaft cut into the wall just below the summit. An alternative route, hidden in plain sight. Without hesitation, she swung herself into the opening, finding a ladder that led directly to the top platform. She emerged at the summit to find Commander Vex Troll waiting, his scaled face unreadable. Maya saluted, breathing hard but standing tall. "Interesting approach, human," he said after a long moment. "Some might call it cheating." "The objective was to reach the top, sir," Maya replied. "You didn't specify the method." "Indeed." Something that might have been reluctant approval flickered in his amber eyes. "You're the 27th cadet to complete the course. Not impressive by Academy standards." Maya glanced back. Of the hundreds who had started, only 26 others had finished ahead of her, all from species with significant physical advantages. Dozens more were still struggling on the course below, and many had been eliminated entirely. But Vextrol continued. You are the first to discover the tactical bypass on the wall. Perhaps there is something to be said for human ingenuity. It wasn't praise, not exactly, but it was acknowledgement, however grudging. Maya kept her expression neutral, though inside, fierce satisfaction bloomed. This was just the first test of many. The Academy would throw worse at her, much worse. But she had proven one thing today, if only to herself. She belonged here. As she stood at attention, waiting for further instructions, Maya caught sight of another figure observing from a higher platform. A massive Dracorian whose ornate armor and collection of honor blades marked him as someone of tremendous rank. Unlike the other instructors, he watched her not with contempt or amusement, but with calculated interest. Maya wondered who he was, not realizing she had just drawn the attention of General Kras Turok, the Academy's supreme commander and the most decorated warrior in the Confederation's history, a being whose interest could be either the greatest opportunity of her career or a death. Maya sprinted not forward, but to the right, away from the main pack. The human flees, someone bellowed, triggering derisive laughter that cut off as the first automated weapons began firing stunned projectiles into the crowd. Maya wasn't fleeing. She was thinking. The direct approach favored raw strength and endurance, attributes where she couldn't compete with species evolved on high-gravity worlds with dense atmospheres. But the course had clearly been designed with multiple viable paths. She spotted a narrow ledge running along the perimeter wall, overlooked by most cadets in their rush forward. With a running start, Maya leaped, catching the edge of the ledge with her fingertips and pulling herself up. The narrow path bypassed the worst of the obstacles, though it presented challenges of its own, primarily balance and precision, areas where humans excelled compared to the heavier, less agile species. From her elevated position, Maya could see the entire course. Most cadets were bottlenecked at a series of barriers designed to be smashed through by brute force. Others had fallen to the stun weapons and were being dragged off the field by automated medical units. Very few seemed to be analyzing the course as a tactical problem rather than a test of raw power. That was her advantage. Humans might not be the strongest or fastest species, but their evolutionary history as pursuit predators and problem solvers had given them exceptional pattern recognition and tactical thinking. She moved along the ledge with careful precision, occasionally having to leap gaps or duck under obstacles. The path eventually rejoined the main course near its end, depositing her just before the final challenge, a climbing wall that stretched nearly 30 meters high, its handholds spaced for creatures with significantly longer limbs than humans. Here, she couldn't avoid direct competition. Already, several cadets were scaling the wall, their natural advantages obvious. 4 armed Pellerin cadets practically flew up the surface. Dracorians used their claws to create their own handholds in the material. Maya approached the wall, aware that several instructors were now watching her specifically. She'd drawn attention by taking an unconventional route, and now they waited to see her fail at this final, unavoidable test of physical prowess. She studied the wall for a moment, then began to climb. Each movement was precisely calculated, using momentum and leverage rather than raw strength. Where other cadets powered straight up, Maya moved in a zigzag pattern, finding the most efficient path, resting one limb while using the others. The effort was grueling. Her muscles burned, her fingers cramped, and halfway up, she missed a handhold and nearly fell. But she kept going, aware that to fall now would confirm every prejudice about human weakness. As she neared the top, Maya noticed something none of the other cadets had: a narrow shaft cut into the wall just below the summit. An alternative route, hidden in plain sight. Without hesitation, she swung herself into the opening, finding a ladder that led directly to the top platform. She emerged at the summit to find Commander Vextrol waiting, his scaled face unreadable. Maya saluted, breathing hard but standing tall. "Interesting approach, human," he said after a long moment. "Some might call it cheating." "The objective was to reach the top, sir," Maya replied. "You didn't specify the method." Indeed, something that might have been reluctant approval flickered in his amber eyes. You're the 27th cadet to complete the course. Not impressive by Academy standards. Maya glanced back. Of the hundreds who had started, only 26 others had finished ahead of her, all from species with significant physical advantages. Dozens more were still struggling on the course below, and many had been eliminated entirely. But, Vex Troll continued, you are the first to discover the tactical bypass on the wall. Perhaps there is something to be said for human ingenuity. It wasn't praise, not exactly, but it was acknowledgement, however grudging. Maya kept her expression neutral, though inside, fierce satisfaction bloomed. This was just the first test of many. The Academy would throw worse at her, much worse, but she had proven one thing today, if only to herself. She belonged here. As she stood at attention, waiting for further instructions, Maya caught sight of another figure observing from a higher platform. A massive Dracorian whose ornate armor and collection of honor blades marked him as someone of tremendous rank. Unlike the other instructors, he watched her not with contempt or amusement, but with calculated interest. Maya wondered who he was, not realizing she had just drawn the attention of General Kraz Turok, the Academy's supreme commander and the most decorated warrior in the Confederation's history. A being whose interest could be either the greatest opportunity of her career or a death. The challenge. 3 months into her tenure at the Dracorian Military Academy, Maya Chen had developed a routine. Wake before dawn. Complete personal conditioning exercises while the other cadets still slept. Report to formation training 15 minutes early. Excel in tactical simulations. Struggle but persevere in physical combat. Retreat to the study halls during meal periods to analyze the next day's challenges. Sleep 5 hours. Repeat. It wasn't sustainable long-term, but Maya wasn't thinking long-term. She focused on surviving each day, each test, each degrading comment from instructors who seemed determined to break her. Analyzing the tactical simulation again, human. The voice startled Maya from her concentration. She looked up from her datapad to find Cadet Vex Mara, Commander Vex Troll's offspring, looming over her table in the study hall. Like all Dracorians, Vex Mara was imposing. 2.5 meters of armored scales and predatory grace. Unlike most, she seemed more curious than hostile toward Maya. I missed a contingency in yesterday's exercise, Maya replied, gesturing to the holographic display showing a battlefield scenario. It cost my team the objective. Vex Mara's head tilted. A gesture Maya had learned indicated genuine interest, rather than the aggression shown by the head-forward posture most Dracorians adopted around her. Your team still ranked 3rd overall, Vex Mara pointed out. Better than most pure Dracorian squads. Maya shrugged. 3rd isn't 1st. A sound emerged from Vex Mara's throat, the Dracorian equivalent of a chuckle. You sound like one of us. Perhaps there is something warrior-like in humans after all. Before Maya could respond, the study hall door hissed open. A group of senior cadets entered, led by Drex Vor, a 4th-year Dracorian known for his particular hatred of non-reptilian species. His gaze locked onto Maya immediately. Still here, soft skin. Drex Vor called out, loud enough to ensure everyone in the hall heard. I had a wager you'd break before the equinox. Maya returned her attention to her datapad, a deliberate dismissal that she knew would provoke him. Better to control when and how the confrontation happened than be caught off guard. Vex Mara shifted uncomfortably, caught between Academy hierarchy that demanded respect for senior cadets and her unexpected regard for the human who refused to quit. I'm speaking to you, lesser form. Drex Vor moved closer, his bulk casting a shadow over Maya's work area. The proper response is to acknowledge a superior cadet. Maya looked up, her expression carefully neutral. I apologize, senior cadet. I was focused on correcting yesterday's tactical errors to better serve the Academy. It was a perfectly reasonable response, which was precisely why it would infuriate him. Dracorians respected strength above all else, but they also prized discipline and dedication to military excellence. By invoking her commitment to improvement, Maya placed Drexvor in the position of either respecting her diligence or appearing to discourage Academy values. His eyes narrowed to slits, always so clever with words. My clutch mates believe humans were admitted to the Academy as some sort of elaborate joke, comic relief for the real warriors. Perhaps, Maya replied evenly. Or perhaps the Confederation recognized that effective military strategy requires diverse perspectives. Drexvor's tail lashed, the only outward sign of his growing anger. Strategy. You think strategy matters more than the strength to execute it. This is why your kind will never truly belong among warrior races. You lack the physical capability to back your so-called intelligence. Maya knew she should de-escalate. She'd survived this long by picking her battles carefully, by knowing when to stand firm and when to yield. But 3 months of constant derision, of proving herself over and over only to be dismissed, had worn her patience thin. Intelligence without strength is still intelligence, she said, rising to her feet. She barely reached the middle of Drexvor's chest, but she met his gaze steadily. Strength without intelligence is just brute force, easily outmaneuvered. The study hall had gone completely silent. Even Vex Mara seemed shocked by Maya's directness. Challenging a senior cadet, especially one as politically connected as Drexvor, was tantamount to career suicide. Drexvor's scales flushed dark with anger. You dare speak to me of being outmaneuvered? His massive hand shot out, faster than Maya could react, seizing her by the front of her uniform and lifting her until her feet dangled above the floor. Your species couldn't even detect our scout ships until we were already in your system. If the Confederation hadn't intervened, Earth would be a Dracorian colony now. Maya struggled to breathe as his grip tightened, but she didn't fight back, not physically. That would be suicide against a Dracorian. Instead, she forced words out through her constricted throat. And yet, here I am, in your academy, learning your weaknesses. The study hall erupted in gasps and hisses. Drexvor's eyes widened in genuine shock, then narrowed in rage. With a snarl, he hurled Maya across the room. She crashed into a table, data pads and holographic projectors scattering as she tumbled to the floor. Pain lanced through her shoulder, but Maya forced herself to her feet immediately. To remain down would be to admit defeat. Her vision swam, but she faced Drexvor squarely as he advanced on her. You speak of weaknesses, he growled. Let me demonstrate the difference between our species. His hand moved to the ceremonial blade all senior cadets carried, not to draw it, but as a reminder of its presence. To draw against a junior cadet would violate Academy regulations, but the threat was clear. Maya knew she should back down, apologize, find some way to defuse the situation. But something in her had snapped. The constant pressure, the perpetual need to prove herself worthy, the knowledge that no matter how well she performed, many would never see her as anything but an interloper. The difference, she said clearly, aware that her words would likely earn her expulsion, is that I don't need to rely on size or strength to prove my worth. Drexvor's control finally broke. With a roar that rattled the displays on the walls, he lunged forward and struck Maya across the face with an open-handed blow that sent her sprawling to the floor once more. Blood welled from her split lip, metallic and warm on her tongue. Enough. Vex Mara stepped between them, her own hand moving to her training blade. Senior cadet, you dishonor yourself. Physical assault against a junior cadet violates Academy protocols. Drexvor bared his teeth. Stand aside, Vex Mara. This doesn't concern your clutch. It concerns Academy discipline, she replied firmly. If you have grievances with Cadet Chen, there are proper channels. The standoff might have continued, but a new voice cut through the tension, deep, resonant, and carrying unmistakable authority. What is the meaning of this disgraceful display? Every cadet in the room snapped to rigid attention as General Kraz Turok entered the study hall, his massive frame seeming to fill the doorway. The supreme commander of the Academy rarely appeared in cadet spaces, preferring to delegate day-to-day oversight to his subordinates. His presence now indicated that this incident had escalated beyond a mere disciplinary matter. "Supreme Commander," Drex 4 began, his tone suddenly deferential. "I was instructing the human cadet on proper respect for Academy hierarchy." General Kraz Tarak's gaze swept from Drex 4 to Maya, taking in her bloodied face and torn uniform, then back to the senior cadet. Through physical assault, his voice was dangerously quiet. "Interesting instructional technique, Cadet Drex 4. Not one sanctioned by Academy protocols, however." Maya remained at attention, blood dripping from her chin onto her uniform. She didn't speak, didn't move to wipe it away. To show pain or distress now would only validate every negative assumption about human fragility. The general moved closer, his massive bulk making even Drex 4 seem small by comparison. "Cadet Chen. Report." Maya's voice emerged steady despite her throbbing face. "Sir, I was engaged in tactical study when Senior Cadet Drex 4 initiated a conversation regarding the place of humans in the Academy. The exchange became heated. I spoke disrespectfully. Senior Cadet Drex 4 responded with physical correction. It was factually accurate while deliberately omitting the most inflammatory elements, both Drex 4's initial provocation and the full extent of her own challenging remarks. She wasn't protecting him. She was refusing to play the victim or appear to be seeking the general's intervention." Kraz Tarak's eyes narrowed slightly, the only indication that he recognized her careful framing of events. "I see." He turned to the other cadets. "Is this an accurate accounting?" No one spoke. To contradict either version would violate the complex honor codes that governed Academy life. After a moment, Vex Mara stepped forward. "Supreme Commander, Cadet Chen's account is factually correct, but incomplete. Senior Cadet Drex 4 initiated hostilities through deliberate provocation and escalated to physical assault when verbally outmaneuvered." A ripple of shock ran through the assembled cadets. Vex Mara had just violated one of the Academy's unwritten rules: unified front before superior officers. More significantly, she'd done so in defense of a human. Kraz Tarak regarded Vex Mara for a long moment, then returned his attention to Maya. "Cadet Chen, you are bleeding on an Academy uniform. That is a violation of grooming." In dusty isolation, along with the one being who might be able to help her find a solution. As she made her way through the deserted corridors, Maya realized that tomorrow would mark either the end of her Academy career or a turning point that would echo beyond these crystalline halls. Either way, she wouldn't go down without forcing the Dracorians to acknowledge one simple truth: humans didn't quit. What she didn't know was that General Kraz Tarak was already several steps ahead of her, and that his interest in this conflict had nothing to do with Academy discipline and everything to do with the test he'd been planning since the day a human first set foot in his domain: preparation and strategy. The Academy archives occupied the lowest level of the central spire, a cavernous chamber rarely visited by cadets. Knowledge in Dracorian culture was secondary to experience, theory subordinate to practice. The archives existed primarily as a repository for historical records and obsolete tactical manuals, maintained more from tradition than necessity. Maya stepped through the massive archway, triggering ancient illumination systems that bathed the space in amber light. Rows of crystalline data storage units stretched into the shadows, containing the accumulated military wisdom of the Confederation's most warlike species. A visitor? How unexpected. The voice seemed to emanate from the darkness itself. Dry and ancient, yet unexpectedly melodious. Maya turned to find a hunched figure emerging from between two towering data stacks. First Archivist Thexcora was the oldest Dracorian at the Academy. His scales faded to pale ivory with age, his once powerful frame now bent and gnarled. "First Archivist," Maya saluted formally. "I seek information regarding Kragavor traditions." The ancient Dracorian's eyes, clouded but still sharp, studied her face, lingering on the regeneration patch covering her split lip. "Ah, you are the human cadet. News travels quickly, even to these forgotten depths." You have invoked the right of challenge. Maya nodded, against a senior cadet who selected blade combat as the trial. Thexcora made a sound, half chuckle, half wheeze. Of course he did. Dracorians always choose the arena where their physical advantages are most pronounced. He gestured for Maya to follow him deeper into the archives. Come, if you seek to survive tomorrow's challenge, we have much to discuss and little time. The archivist, standards. The statement was so unexpected that Maya almost broke her stance. Sir, I apologize for the violation. You have two options, Cadet, the general continued. Accept formal disciplinary measures for both the grooming violation and insubordination toward a senior cadet, or invoke Kragavor. The study hall erupted in shocked hisses and exclamations. Kragavor, the right of challenge, was an ancient Dracorian tradition, rarely invoked in modern times. It allowed a junior warrior who believed they had been unjustly treated to challenge their superior to a test of skill rather than accept punishment. Sir, Drexvor protested, the human can't possibly invoke Kragavor. It's a Dracorian tradition, reserved for. I am aware of our traditions, Cadet Drexvor. The general cut him off. As Academy Supreme Commander, I interpret them. The human cadet has been formally admitted to the Academy, which grants her access to all traditions, privileges, and responsibilities therein. He turned back to Maya. Your decision, Cadet Chen. Disciplinary measures or Kragavor? Maya's mind raced. Disciplinary measures would effectively end her career before it began, a permanent mark on her record that would follow her even if she somehow managed to graduate. But Kragavor was typically a physical challenge, and against a Dracorian senior cadet, she had no realistic chance of victory. Still, the choice was clear. One path meant certain failure. The other at least offered a chance, however slim. I invoke Kragavor, Supreme Commander, Maya said firmly. The general's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his ancient eyes. Approval, perhaps, or merely satisfaction at an expected response. So noted, he said. As the challenged party, Senior Cadet Drexvor has the right to select the nature of the contest. Drexvor's scaled face split in a predatory grin. Blade combat. Traditional Dracorian honor blades. First blood from the torso ends the match. It was exactly what Maya had feared. A direct physical confrontation that maximized his advantages and exploited her weaknesses. Honor blades were ceremonial weapons, over a meter in length and designed for Dracorian physiology. She'd barely be able to lift one, let alone wield it effectively against a trained warrior nearly twice her size. General Kraz Teruk nodded. As Supreme Commander, I exercise my right to oversee the challenge personally. This was another surprise. Typically, such matters would be delegated to junior officers. The challenge will take place tomorrow at first light in the Grand Arena. He fixed Maya with an assessing gaze. Cadet Chen, you have until then to prepare. I suggest you use the time wisely. Without waiting for a response, he turned and strode from the study hall, leaving behind a wake of stunned silence. As soon as the general was gone, Drexvor moved close to Maya, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You've signed your own expulsion order, human. Tomorrow, you'll discover what happens to soft creatures who play at being warriors. Maya said nothing, maintaining her stance until he too had left. Only then did she allow herself to wipe the blood from her chin, her mind already racing through options, none of them promising. You've made a grave miscalculation, Vexmera said, approaching cautiously. Drexvor has been training with honor blades since hatching. He's champion of his clutch. I didn't have much choice, Maya replied, wincing as she probed her split lip. Disciplinary action would have ended my career anyway. And now you face ritual combat against an opponent who can literally tear you apart. Vexmera shook her head. I don't understand your strategy. Maya managed a smile despite her throbbing face. That makes two of us. Later, alone in the Academy's medical facility as a drone treated her facial injury, Maya fought back despair. She had less than 18 hours to prepare for a combat form she barely studied, using a weapon she could hardly wield, against an opponent with overwhelming physical advantages. The medical drone finished its work, applying a regeneration patch to her lip. Injury treatment complete. Cadet Chen. Medical recommendation: 24 hours restricted physical activity to allow tissue regeneration. Maya almost laughed at the irony. Override medical recommendation. Authorization: Chen Alpha 39. Override accepted, the drone replied tonelessly. Caution advised. Further trauma may result in permanent scarring. Noted. Maya slid off the examination table. Decision made. She couldn't outfight Drex 4. That was a mathematical certainty. But perhaps she didn't need to. Kragavor was, at its core, about honor and justice, not merely combat prowess. She needed information, and she needed it quickly. And for that, she'd have to return to a place most cadets avoided at all costs. The Academy archives, where the accumulated military knowledge of 8 centuries waited.